Good evening. I want to thank everyone for coming to the regularly scheduled open meeting of the DOA group of Alcoholics Anonymous, 11 p.m. EST. My name is Marty, and I'm an alcoholic, and I'm your chair for tonight. Let us open the meeting with a moment of silence for the sick and suffering alcoholic, followed by the Serenity prayer for those who know and care to join. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. I will now read How It Works. Chapter 5. How it works. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constitutionally incapable of being honest with themselves. They are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They're naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. The chances are less than average. There are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorders, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way what it used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have, and are willing to go to any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. At some of these we balked. We thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless, thorough from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the result was nil. Till we let go absolutely. Here, alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help, is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now. Half measures availed us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked his protection and care with complete abandon. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol. Their lives had become unmanageable. 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. We're entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7. Humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed, and became willing to make amends to them all. 9. Made direct amends to people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and the power to carry that out. 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all our affairs. Many of us exclaimed, "What an order! I can't go through with it." Don't be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect adherence to these principles. We are not saints. The point is, if we were willing to grow along spiritual lines, the principles we have set down guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholic, a chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventures before and after make clear three pertinent ideas. A. That we were alcoholic and could not manage our own lives. B. That probably no human power could have relieved our alcoholism. C. That God could and would if He were sought. Thanks to all who listened. If you would like to share, please raise your hand and I will call on you. Tonight's topic is from the audio Grapevine. I'll set it up now.
Welcome to the January 2011 issue of Grapevine magazine. We start with a note from the managing editor.
At what point did you admit you were powerless over alcohol? According to Bill W., writing in the March 1960 AA Grapevine, this simply means that all of us have to hit bottom and hit it hard and lastingly. That bottom comes in many forms, and the essays in this month's special section are particularly poignant accounts of powerlessness. In The young female author of Puppet of Destruction writes, ironically, my bottom was not when I lost my apartment, my job, my boyfriend, or the respect of my family, and goes on to share that her complete emptiness of all emotion brought her to step one. These and other stories like these remind us that while the road to admitting powerlessness may be rough, the key to recovery can be as simple as learning to be normal. Service takes many forms, and sending your stories and art to AA Grapevine is one of them. We are now accepting submissions for the 2012 AA Grapevine Wall Calendar Photo Contest. Get someone's day started right with an inspiring image. Learn more in this issue, or visit aagrapevine.org. In fellowship, the managing editor, me@aagrapevine.org.
Powerless. Standing on the edge. A suicidal leap was her first step toward recovery.
My first drinking experience happened at 16. I had just wanted to catch a buzz. Instead of a buzz, I got plastered. It was not long until passing out became a common occurrence for me, as did drunk driving. Humiliating behavior from the night before led to feelings of remorse. This pattern of drinking continued throughout college. Drinking didn't stop me from earning good grades, so I never considered my partying a problem. After college, I moved to Brooklyn with my childhood best friend. We were both designers, dreaming of being successful in the city. However, I struggled with finding work and adjusting to city life. My alcoholism progressed more rapidly while living in New York. During the first couple of years in Brooklyn, I explored many new bars with my friends. I drank mostly on weekends and a couple of times during the week. This didn't seem excessive to me. However, I started experiencing blackouts, plus I would lose track of my purse. My drunken outbursts were becoming less amusing to my friends. I started seeing doctors for insomnia. They diagnosed me with depression, and I began abusing the pills that were prescribed for me. Oftentimes I took the pills while I was drinking to increase the effect. Eventually I found a full-time job designing for a popular magazine. When I started succeeding in my career, again my drinking increased. There were frequent happy hours with co-workers that included after-hour parties. I tried increasing my tolerance so I could party longer and harder. Many times I threw up halfway during the night so I could drink more. I couldn't keep up with the demands at work. After I quit my job, I drank daily. I was depressed and couldn't sleep or eat. I couldn't hold a job. I stayed in bed all day until it was time to hit the bar. I would spend the night out alone and sit at the bar for hours, feeling pathetic while I drank. Sometimes, after closing the bar, I returned to the apartment with strangers and continued boozing. Drinking wasn't fun anymore, but it was the only thing I felt compelled to do. I hoped I was drinking enough to kill myself, but it wasn't happening fast enough. After 5 years of misery, my roommate asked me to leave the apartment. The only option I had was to move into my mother's new house with her new husband. When I left Brooklyn, I was broken. I had hit an emotional bottom, and I drank daily to numb the pain. My mom and I battled constantly. I tore through her house's ample liquor supply in a matter of weeks. A couple of months later, I managed to get 2 DUIs, less than a week apart. Then came another geographical solution. I moved to Long Beach Island, New Jersey, where I landed a job, a new beginning that offered me hope. To myself, I swore that I would control my drinking. That newfound resolve didn't last long. Though I tried, I was incapable of not drinking. I was bringing bottles of spring water filled with vodka to work. The boss fired me after a couple of warnings. Still, I was determined to stay at the beach. I raced through job after job, always supplying ample reason for termination. Since my license was revoked, I rode my bike everywhere. Sometimes I hitchhiked. I was alone and without friends. I was putting myself in dangerous situations while drinking. After a year of struggling at the shore, I was mentally unraveling. I told myself that I was fine and managing, but that wasn't the truth. Disappointment overwhelmed me. I had failed once more. I began hallucinating from the effects of alcohol. One night, after mixing drinking with pills, I decided that I had had enough pain. I climbed out the window onto the roof of my apartment. There I was, standing on the edge and feeling hopeless. I jumped. The other tenants found me, and I ended up in a hospital. For 4 days I remained unconscious. I awakened with no memory of what happened. I had no recollection of the emergency reconstructive surgery to my feet. A doctor explained my circumstances to me. He said I might never walk again. The grim news caused me to suffer a nervous breakdown, and I was transferred to a mental institution. I became violent during admission and was put in restraints. For the next few days, I hallucinated and vomited. I later discovered this was due to the withdrawal from alcohol. I was confined to a wheelchair with casts up to my knees. This insanity was my true bottom. Yet it never occurred to me that alcohol was the problem. The day I graduated from an intensive outpatient program, I wanted to get drunk. The state of New Jersey had mandated that I go to treatment in order to have my driver's license reinstated. When I left, a counselor told me that he thought I would indeed drink again. He might have been right. Even though I had hit bottom, I was still obsessed with drinking. I was scared. Really scared. There were no friends, no job, and no money, and I was living at home again with my parents. Drinking again meant accumulating more problems on top of the consequences I had already collected. I was aware that I desperately needed help. I realized that I would not stay sober on my own. I attended a beginner's meeting the day after I graduated the IOP. I had thought I would sneak in and out. When the leader asked who had under a year, I raised my hand. The speaker asked me how I was doing. That was the first time I spoke about my alcoholism. After I cried throughout the meeting, a member pulled me aside. "I want to hear you say, 'I'm powerless over alcohol.'" His voice echoed in the basement of the church. "I am powerless over alcohol," I said. "Louder," he said. He made me repeat that statement until I owned it. I sat with the members who had gathered in the parking lot. While smoking a cigarette with them, I was assigned a female sponsor. People shook hands with me and said, "Keep coming." I walked into my first beginners meeting in denial over my drinking. I left the church, feeling like I had surrendered. In retrospect, I felt then that I had become powerless over alcohol after years of progressive drinking. Today, I realized that I had no control over my drinking since that very first plastic cup of liquor. The road to recovery began with honesty. Only when I accepted that I had a problem with alcohol could I move forward. After that first meeting, I was told that all I needed to do was listen, keep an open mind, and remain teachable. I became willing to seek help and take suggestions. After 6 months of being in the program, I was still gripped by the obsession to drink. The rooms offered me hope and relief, but I needed something more. Thus, someone suggested that I work the steps. I found a sponsor who was willing to walk me through them. We met weekly and read the big book together. Reading The Doctor's Opinion gave meaning to why I was powerless over alcohol. I learned that powerlessness is admitting that I have a lack of power or control over the choice to drink. It also explained the difference between an alcoholic and a non-alcoholic. I discovered that I was helpless over alcohol, both in mind and body. I identified with the obsession, cravings, and volatile behaviors of an alcoholic. I understood that self-reliance is a form of sickness. Also, when I turned my life over to the care of alcohol, my life became unmanageable. In my recovery today, powerlessness has expanded to people, places, and things. When I am fearful about a situation, I have to return to the first step. Trying to take control of a situation means that I lack trust in my higher power. While I'm running the show, things quickly become unmanageable. The promises began coming true when I started having faith. I found a stable job and bought a condo and a car. When I was sober for 4 years, I met my husband in the program. That AA member who made me shout out my powerlessness 6 years earlier had saved my life. My journey began when I proclaimed that I was powerless over alcohol. How did he know that I needed to speak out loud in order to believe? Tanya C., Bedminster, New Jersey. Steps. It's not a gimmick if it works. A first step emerges from an indexed history.
Step 1 was hard. I came with a watch, car, professional career, and no DUI, jail, detox, skid row, treatment center, or DTs. I didn't drink every day. I thought that I'd never had blackouts. I said AA was boring and that I was very thirsty. Loudly. By the grace of God, as I don't understand him, I've been sober over 34 years. Never relapsed. How? People were praying for me. Some long-timer said, "Young man, everyone needs 3 things to get the program. We're very sorry. You don't have any of them." I asked, "What are the 3 things?" They said honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. They weren't mean, and they were telling me the truth. They saw that I was downcast. One said, "You know, even you might get the program. If you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, if you're willing to become willing, if you'll ask God as you understand him or God as you don't understand him to give you what you need but you don't have, honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness, even you might get the program." That meant there was hope for me. I could start where I was. I didn't need to wait until I got a better attitude. I could ask for one. 90 meetings in 90 days? Read the big book every day? Both too boring. Guys would offer me their phone numbers. I said, "Get away from me. I don't want what you have." But I did begin to pray every day for honesty, open-mindedness, and willingness. An honest desire to stay sober no matter what, and a genuine desire to go on living. To look at my drinking, I used index cards instead of a notebook, because new memories popped up in random order. Each card was for one drinking experience. At the top left, I wrote my age, in the middle what I was drinking, and at the top right, where. Below that, I wrote the details of that experience. Example: 14. Whiskey. Hometown. We could have been shot to death doing burglaries day and night to steal whiskey. We got crazy drunk. I sorted the cards by age. I saw why I had always had a life and death problem with alcohol, yet never even had a DUI. I usually drank, got drunk, blacked out, and passed out, all quickly. I saw that I would eventually drink because of the mental obsession, get drunk because of the physical craving, and die an alcoholic death because of the progression. I have used the same method with the men I sponsor. I say, this gimmick is not in the big book, but there are lots of good ideas that aren't in the big book, like 90 and 90, and HALT. Don't get too hungry, too angry, too lonely, or too tired. I say, this will be painful, but it will help you to see the part of your drinking story that could lead you to a relapse unless you take an honest look at it, the part you don't see now. The underwater part of the iceberg that sank the Titanic. They all complain, but they end up thanking me. I say, self-knowledge can't keep any alcoholic sober, but it may motivate you to go looking for something that can. The 12 steps. If my sponsees have also used drugs, it seems to make it harder for them to see what kind of drinking problem they have, since everything is mixed up. I suggest that they pull out the cards that deal with alcohol alone. Perhaps very few. I suggest, that's your drinking story. That's what you can compare with the stories in the big book to decide what kind of drinking problem you have. A. Can you quit and stay quit on your own without the 12 steps and AA meetings? B. Is lifelong involvement in the 12 steps of AA a matter of life and death for you? Anonymous. Denver, Colorado.
If you would like to share on topic or whatever is on your heart or anything that is helping you in your sobriety, please raise your hand and I will call on you. Thanks again.